Hey guys, for reading today, for reading today, we're going to do something similar to kind of like what we did in lesson 2 or in the second assignment, where I am going to go through a couple different sections of our story, Mrs. Buell, with you, and we're going to pick out the things that we think are the most important and make sure that we underline and highlight the sentences that show how we know that that's the most important piece of that section. Except today, I'm going to go through one section with you guys, and then you'll have 2 sections to do, as your assignment today. This shouldn't take you a whole lot of time because we're just skimming through and just picking out the most important part. Write a quick note in the margin, underline the important details, and then identify the important information, and then some of the details as well. Goodness me, I'm so sorry, guys. I just tripped over my words so much. So let's go ahead and get started with section 4. I'll do this one for you guys so that you have an example, and then you can do sections 5 and 6 on your own. So let's reread section 4. She was terribly fat. She got so hot in summer that her hair hung down in wet strings and her clothes looked limp. In winter, she wore the same sweater every day, a man's gray one, too big, with the sleeves pushed up. They kept slipping down and she'd shove them back 1,000,000 times a day, yet she never rolled up the cuffs to make them shorter. She never took days off. She was always there. We didn't like her or hate her. We sort of knew that selling stuff to kids for a trickle of small change wasn't a job anybody would choose, especially in that poky little place with flies in summer and the door being opened all winter, letting in blasts of cold air. Even after that day when she fixed my knee, I didn't once wonder about her life. Then I stopped at Buell's one afternoon, and she wasn't there. Instead, a man and woman I'd never laid eyes on were behind the counter sorting through stacks of stuff. They were getting some boxes down off a high shelf right then, so they didn't hear me come in. I was so amazed, I just stood there gawking. Okay, so that is all of section 4. And when I'm reading through this, I'm thinking that the most important part of this section is that Kate doesn't really think about Mrs. Buell until one day when she suddenly wasn't there. So in the margin, I'm going to write, Kate doesn't think about Mrs. Buell until one day she isn't there. Okay. So now I'm going to go and find a couple sentences that support this. Main one that jumps out at me would be, even after the day that she fixed my knee, I didn't once wonder about her life. It kind of tells a lot about Katie that she came into contact with this person quite a bit, but never really thought about her life at all. And then I guess the next most important sentence would be, then I stopped at Buell's one afternoon and she wasn't there. Those 2 sentences kind of support my main idea that Kate doesn't think about her until one day when she isn't there, and then she kind of thinks about her a lot in the following days. So now I'm going to grab a different colored pen, and I'm going to find some sentences that kind of help to support this. I think these 2 sentences, she never took days off, she was always there, kind of help support this because Kate didn't really notice Mrs. Buell until she suddenly wasn't there. So I think that's kind of an important sentence, as well as the part where she says we didn't like her or hate her. They just kind of didn't really have feelings about her. She was just a piece of their background. She was always just kind of there and involved somehow, some way, but they never really took a whole lot of notice of her. So I think those are some important details that kind of help solidify my thoughts about the most important parts of this section. So now what you will do is, for your assignment, I've attached pictures of both section 5 and section 6, though I do believe these are also on page 79, maybe page 80 of your student response book. If you'd rather do it on paper, you can, but I think you can also do it in Seesaw. So I have those pictures attached, and what you'll need to do for each of these sections is reread it, and just like I did up here, identify what you think the main idea is, the most important part. Write that in the margin, and then underline in black or blue what sentences support that as the most important idea or main idea. and then in red or purple, underline some supporting details, okay? So that's the whole assignment. There's no limit of how many things you need to underline, just whatever you think is important to include. And then submit that on Seesaw. And don't forget to go and do your 30 minutes of reading. At the bottom of your submission for section six, I'd like you to please write down at the bottom the title of the book you're reading and what page number you're on today. So make sure that you include that in your assignment when you submit it.